Thank you, Elan, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Good. Testing. Can everyone hear me? Yep. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for having me. Appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Matthew, wherever you are. There you are. I thought today we have a lot to cover. I'm going to try to cram it in. But I thought it would be really important for everybody to get a sense of what the other side thinks, which is the financing side and the term side, but specifically from a CMHC's perspective, because the days of condo IRR isn't what it used to be. So is there a way that we can build something, and the cause du jour is rental, that's all the talk. Is there a way that we can do that and make sense of it? So I'm here to show you that today with a few projects that we've done that I think will fit into what you guys typically do, and to give a sense to the investors of foremost sort of what the other side thinks. So I'm going to go through a little bit of who we are, give a sense of how we come together and how we finance our mortgages and how we access our debt for our clients. Go through a few of the programs with CMHC, go through a few of the underwriting examples that we've done over the last couple of years, and focus on the CMHC loan application process. So this is who we are. You guys would fit in the $47 billion space. That's what we have assets under management. And understand a little bit about what we are and who we are. We're the largest non-bank in Canada. And we don't take GICs like a bank. So the way we finance is through our bridge loan program. And we also, as a lender, and we also finance our CMHC program through warehousing our loans and selling it off to the market. So the client base that we have is typically in that 5 units to and beyond. The way we access our capital is the CMHC has come out with the federal government, and they finance, they allow us to finance our program through creating the Canada Mortgage Bond Program through the Canada Housing Trust Program. That program enables us to fuel our mortgage book. These are the who's who, so if you're not in that space, you ask why, because these are the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. They're the who's who on the apartment space. This is a sense of the CMHC market and the 2 different programs that they have. We have the standard construction completion as well as the MLI Select program. We're going to go into the MLI Select program in a bigger degree in order for you to understand what it's about and how we can access it to a better degree. So if we take a look at the standard construction program, we have the underwritten versus on the market side, which gives you a lesser of 100% of loan to cost to 85 of value. Debt service is a 120 on a 10-year term, 130 on a 5-year term, and we can max out at 40 years. What makes it very attractive on the MLI Select program, which is what everybody's talking about today, is the fact that we can go up to 95% of cost, and we'll go through some practical examples of that, as well as we can underwrite to a 110, which in the current market space of how interest rates have risen, we really need that 110 cover, and we're able to do 50-year amortization. What makes the huge difference between the two, as we'll go into the slides today, is the fact that we can access the 50M for free. CMHC has a premium escalation when we go from LTV from 65 to 85, and they add on 25 basis points for every 5 year on the amortization scale. So if we can access the MLI Select program, that's the place to be. The huge accommodation that CMHC has given us on the MLI Select program is the ability to rent, is the ability to lease up with no rent, stabilized rent required. So we can convert to term. We can take a foremost mortgage out without having you stabilize and have your rent in place, which is a game changer. That creates that condo style financing on the term side, because instead of having sales as your exit strategy becomes the conversion to term, lowers your interest rate. You're not subject to the float program, which is typically how construction loans are financed. These are the highlights on the MLI Select program. We're going to focus a little bit on the efficiency side because that's the game changer with this program. They had one that preceded the MLI Select program called the Flex program, and it required you to engage in the affordable side and the efficiency side. The game changer here is you don't have to give up affordable rents to get in the program, and I'll explain that a little bit later. There's obviously, as I mentioned, the affordable commitment part of it, and then there's the accessibility, which I'll get into. We still are going by the 2019 median renter income on the affordable side. CMHC feels that the CERB checks haven't gone through the renter income, which is what they base their renter income affordability. And the term, like I mentioned, was 40 to 50 years, and our loan to cost goes up to 95%. These are the rents, and as you can see, if we're looking at Toronto at $13.47 on a per foot basis, it's very low. So how can we get you in the program with you typically not having to go through the affordability, or we say at a 5, 10, or 15 unit building, if you're only giving up 2 to 3 units at $13.47, it's not such a big game changer for you. The MLI Select on the efficiency side is what we need to be thinking about. I know you heard a bit about it today with the architect and with a few of the builder presentations. We've spent about 50 people hours to understand how do we maximize the efficiency from a financing perspective, understanding the carbon usage of your building, work with you at the design phase so that we can get you in the program under the bucket of the climate CMHC accommodation. Because if we can do that, and these are a few examples, we're able to get into the program without having to give up the affordable side. So we have to be very conscious of that. So, for example, CMHC requires the building code as the test, but we've worked with CMHC over the last year to see if we can get accommodation outside of that. And these are the examples. So little things can add somewhere between 5 to 10% more efficiency, which allows you into the program on the climate bucket. This is the crux of it. In Ontario, we can go into other locations, it doesn't really serve you guys. Ontario, as you can see, has the baseline of 28 carbon emissions usage, as well as gas being the main driver. So we're in a situation where in Toronto specifically, we have to go by how many days of heat we use. And because most of our energy is through hydro and nuclear and gas, we have to use that baseline. So what can we do in the building that can make it more efficient? Boiler is a huge one. Window to wall ratio in Toronto, you want to be about 40%. So if you're building a condo, you're thinking more sexy, and you want it to be more eye-catching for the marketing side. But if you're building something on the apartment side, it doesn't have to have that. So if there's a way that we can manage the program outside, within the building code and outside of it, is what will enable us to give you the ability to not have to give up the affordable rents. So this is the crux of the program. It's a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. So this is another aspect of the program that's very, very important as a builder to understand. If we have to go through the purchase refinance, you're giving up 40% in order to get into the program on the affordability side on your rents. So you can see from the 3 different buckets, the best way to go is to the energy efficiency, and the goodies are at the bottom. So obviously, the higher level you attain, the more goodies you get, which is the 100 points at up to 95% of cost and the 50-year amortization. The reason why I have this slide up is you can see the difference between the affordability and the energy efficiency bucket as it pertains to buildings that are built from a construction takeout standpoint. So we flick to the next slide, there is a difference on the energy efficiency and the affordability. The affordability is only 10%. So, and the energy efficiency isn't going on the existing building, it's going on the modeling of how you built your building from the get-go. So we have to be very mindful of that, because CMHC's rule for construction takeout of financing of construction on a new building is within 24 months of when you got substantial completion. So if you have a situation where you held it, we have to go back to this slide. We can't use this one. So it's really important to have the timeline in place when you start your build out so that we can go under the program from a completion takeout perspective. If we focus further on the accessibility, we can pick up further points. So it's an a la carte. And that's why it's called the Select program. So how do we manage your business and your timeline of construction so that we go into this program versus the other one? Here's how we do it. So we want to make sure that we're taking out the debt in the required way. So because it's construction, we can easily do that. But if we're doing any renovation, we have to make sure that we accommodate CMHC's requirement from an equity takeout standpoint. When we focus further on the completion takeout perspective, we want to make sure that that affordability is there if we're going to apply for the rent reduction. And if we do, we want to make sure that our per unit per square foot basis is there. What I mean by that is we have to make sure that whatever rent we charge on a unit that is, for instance, a bachelor, the market rent that we are charging the potential renter has to match the affordable, so we can't be any higher. So what I mean by that is, for instance, if we have a situation where we're trying to manage the market rent versus the affordable per foot rent has to be lower. So we don't want to have a situation where we're designing a building where the bachelors for the affordable are much smaller than the bachelors or the ones of the building from the market side, because then we get hit with the per square foot basis being offside. Here's an example of one that we did in the Christie Pitts area. We had a laneway that they converted into a rental unit. And the question that we asked when they came in is, does it meet the trifecta when we're doing the underwriting? This will give you a sense of how we look at a deal. So from CMHC's perspective, them being an insurance company and not the lender, we want to make sure that we understand how they tick, and we want to make sure that we don't push their buttons too much, because if we do, we're not going to get the right insurance from them as the lender. So when I say, does it meet the trifecta, are we pushing on the cap rate, the NOI, and the value per door? Very simple. So we're going to go to the next slide. A lot to unpack, but I'll walk you through it. So we take the rent, overall from a gross rental perspective, we have to put a vacancy allowance in there at 3%, given the fact that that location was about 2% from a market standpoint. We then have to put a management expense of 4.25%, and I'll explain that further on the next slide. The realty taxes, utilities, insurance, repairs and maintenance, and so forth. The trifecta point of the triangle is at 18%. This particular building, working with our team, we managed to do the efficiency bucket. As a result, we could push the rents because the efficiency was very low. When we look at the per door value for a building of this size, which was about 5 units, it works from CME's perspective. If it was about 900 to 950, then we're pushing it too hard. So when we looked at the overall perspective of the property, they were able to get a considerable higher amount from a percentage basis on loan amount, going from the standard, as you can see, versus the MLI Select, 50 points to 100 points. So you can see how valuable it is. And as a percentage basis, the higher the cost, the higher the loan amount, the higher the value, has a great impact on the per bucket basis that we work our way into. These are the underwriting criteria from CMHC. We're the lender, we make the recommendation, but they still give us benchmarks that we can't move or change off of. Like I mentioned, the property management expense, as well as repair and maintenance. So there are a few of them that we can't change. As a result, we work with them in order to make justification. And that's the difference between how we work and maybe some of our competitors, because we want to understand what CMHC is about, how we can leverage the products that they have for you from an efficiency standpoint in order to mitigate your risk and maximize your profit. This is the typical loan process from CMHC when we're working with them. The timelines can take a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, right now, they're trying to clear a lot through the system. So I would say from a construction standpoint, you're looking from start to finish somewhere around 6 months, but can be shorter. We're seeing now is shorter than about 3 months. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're way in advance of this, talking to you guys to make sure that you understand how we can manage the program so that we're not left caught when you're at the stage of term out. That's the end of the presentation. Are there any questions?